families, welcome back once again. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Yes, I have just finished the interview that our President Captain Ibrahim Traore, His Excellency, had in Russia. By the way, I found out it was two. I finished this one. Please, families, it's long already, and I know many of you has already listened to him. But as I do it here, I have to add this to the documentary that I'm making here. And so if you can get time for me, listen, I'll break it down for you. Thank you for your time. I'll be back.
Your Excellency, welcome to Sputnik Africa. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It is a great honor for our agency.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, your visit is taking place as part of the celebrations for the 80th anniversary of Russia's victory in the Great Patriotic War. Yesterday, you attended the parade on Red Square. What did you take away from this experience? In your opinion, how significant were the celebrations? Perhaps which equipment impressed you the most?
All right, thank you very much. As you mentioned, the context is indeed the celebration of Russia's victory in the Great Patriotic War, as it is called. We were very impressed by the parade and, well, a bit overwhelmed because the parade began with the entire motorized section with the vehicles, the legendary T-34 tank that contributed to the victory, all the way up to today's modern vehicles, the T-90s, and of course other types of missiles that have been developed. It really impressed us, it taught us a lot, and it allowed us to see how Russia has evolved technologically in the military field from that great war up to the present day.
All right, Mr. President. And why was it important for you to accept President Putin's invitation and join Russia in these celebrations?
It's important to me for several reasons. First of all, because it's an invitation from a friendly country. Russia and Burkina Faso are now working closely together. Our cooperation is quite strategic, which means that we need to come and take part alongside the Russian people. Secondly, in that same war, our ancestors also contributed to the liberation of Europe, fighting against Nazism, which means that we share a common history in celebrating this victory. And that's very important. And another thing is that today, Russia and Burkina Faso are fighting the same battle. We have a world that I would describe as unilateral, and we want a multipolar world. We want a free, independent world, a world of peace where nations do not dictate to other nations what they should do and how they should be. So Russia is actively engaged in this struggle, which is also a struggle of denazification, if I can put it that way. And so we too are engaged in this same kind of struggle against imperialism, which wants to enslave us, which wants to keep us in bondage. So we share the same perspectives. So it was very symbolic. We have just taken part alongside the Russian people in this celebration.
Notably, the Soviet people contributed greatly to defeating Nazism. And the Burkinabe people, as you rightly say, are now making efforts to fight and eradicate terrorism. Do you see similarities between our two peoples, and how do these similarities manifest themselves more concretely?
Yes. I have learned many lessons from this celebration, and there are many similarities in the struggle we are currently waging. Look at the Soviet people who sacrificed nearly 27 million lives to achieve this victory. At one point, they could have said, "That's enough," signed an armistice, and given up. But it was their courage, tenacity, and resilience that made them continue the fight, and in the end, they won. Burkina Faso has been fighting against terrorism for 10 years now, and it's not as if there haven't been any deaths. There have been many deaths from that time up to today, but we do not give up because we know that we will achieve victory, and we continue this fight. So it's this mindset that unites us, and that's also what's very interesting in these moments.
And how do you analyze the influence of the Soviet victory in the Second World War on the process of decolonization in Africa? What would have happened if we can try to imagine to Africa if Nazism had won?
That That contributed a lot, I can say. Now, if Nazism had won, I can't really imagine, but I try to. You know, people didn't respect black people. Even today, it still goes on. Black people have always been labeled as subhuman, some even saw us as animals, actually. You've heard the stories of colonization, of slavery. Black people were tortured, displayed in cages like wild animals in Europe and so on. Black people were castrated to prevent them from even having offspring. Black people were treated as less than animals. You know that in Congo, cardboard was considered more valuable than black skin. They preferred to dry rubber on black people's skin rather than pay for cardboard to dry the rubber. Black people have suffered greatly, so slavery for centuries and centuries, colonization and this war. You see, they came and took our ancestors without their consent, sent them to the slaughterhouse on the front lines, and when they returned, you heard what happened in Senegal. When they tried to claim their money, they were killed. That is to say, we do not consider black. And yet, they went to fight alongside the so-called allies who treated them like that. But imagine if Nazism had won. That would have been a disaster. So that's why I said it was a fight that had to be fought. It was utter madness in the world. It was a fight that had to be fought, and Africa took part in it. And today, we can say thank you because the people who made the greatest sacrifice were the Soviet people. No one lost as many men, no one experienced as much destruction during the war as the Soviet people. So we are grateful, and I think it was necessary for the world to be as it is today and for Africa to also have hope to carry on.
So some time ago, our president talked about graveyard and people has twisted it around, but families, let's hear it from his own mouth what it means that Burkina Faso will be a graveyard for the terrorists. You already heard they are not fighting terrorists. They know who they are fighting. And he has explained that I'll be back, families.
Mr. President, you recently stated that Burkina Faso will be the graveyard of terrorism. Are you setting concrete deadlines to completely defeat it? And how do you see Russia's future assistance regarding this, one of the main pillars of the Russia-Burkina Faso partnership?
I said that because in Burkina Faso, we are working so that today there are many criminals being recruited to come and fight in Burkina Faso. This is not terrorism. I don't even know how to describe it. It's criminality. These are bandits who have been armed by imperialists to destabilize us, to keep us in a state of perpetual war, and to exploit us. And so, as I said, we are working to make Burkina Faso the graveyard of terrorism. When someone is recruited to come and fight in Burkina, it should be so bad that they would rather commit suicide. And that will happen because they equip them, they train them, and they give them technology, these criminals, but we are constantly adapting. Right now, we are in a rather unique phase. They have acquired new technologies, new combat techniques and everything, thanks to the support of those imperialists. Now that we are in the process, we have studied the situation, and we are going to respond immediately to all of this. So you will see terrorism will end. I don't want to give a timeline, but terrorism will end, and very soon, as quickly as we can. And from Russia, all we are really asking for is mainly intellectual support. That's it. To help with intellectual training for our military industry, which we need to develop, and to help train young people in everything we can develop to face this war. That's the part that interests us the most.
And more specifically, what material, maybe what equipment interests you the most?
First, I have to say thank you, because Russia is one of those rare countries in the world that has taken military equipment and come to give it to us to fight the war. So that's significant. Apart from Russia and China, there is no one else. Otherwise, it's even worse elsewhere. Even if we want to pay, they refuse to sell to us. But here, they understood that we are at war. Russia is also conducting its special operation. We know it's not easy, but if, despite that, they were able to take equipment and come give it to Burkina Faso, I think that's already very important. But as I said, Russia is helping to train us. For everything we purchase, Russian soldiers train Burkinabe soldiers on how to use this equipment and all that. But we want to continue developing our own military industry with the support of Russia, which is far ahead, I'd say globally, when it comes to weaponry. So we need to have this close collaboration so that we can make progress in our war.
So in recent years, there have been major changes for the Sahel and for each of the AES countries in particular, such as, for example, the definitive break with ECOWAS and also the adoption of their own symbols like the common flag. In this context, how would you describe Burkina Faso before and after? And how do you assess the alliance of Sahel states as a format for regional cooperation? Are there any plans for expansion, perhaps?
Thank you so much. If you are still here, he has also been asked about the expansion of AES. Most of the ministers has been asked and they also responded. We have that video. Please listen to the president himself, what he has to say about the expansion of AES because Africans demands it. I'll be back, families.
For expansion, perhaps?
Yes, to understand the AES today, you just have to look at African youth. I think African youth are hopeful that this is a model of unity. And for us, the leaders of the AES, that puts pressure on us. We have to succeed because Africa now needs to unite. We were in an organization that was supposed to be a relationship based on solidarity, cooperation, mutual assistance, and all that. But you can't be in an organization where you call each other brothers, and then at some point they cut off the electricity so that patients die in hospitals and the economy comes to a halt. They close the banks so that you can't access anything. Your transfers to buy the bare essentials, medicines, and so on, they prevented that for certain Sahelian peoples. They even formed an army to come and fight the Sahelian peoples, while terrorism has been raging for decades, and they have been incapable of sending a single soldier to help fight it. These are not brothers. We must not fool ourselves. And this isn't about the people, it's about the leaders. Otherwise, when you look at the people, even in these ECOWAS countries and all, the people support and understand the momentum of the AES.
That encourages us to organize ourselves, to be a model so that in the future it can spread further.
But in order to expand, we need to establish strong foundations. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. So that's basically what led us to withdraw and reorganize in order to relaunch ourselves.
Mr. President, for many people in Africa, you are more than just the president of a country. You are seen as the embodiment of a new pan-Africanism. Why does Africa today more than ever need, if I may say so, a new Thomas Sankara? How does it feel to bear all this responsibility at only 37 years old?
Age doesn't matter, but it is pressure, I can say that. It's pressure. You shouldn't turn it into madness or delusions of grandeur. It's pressure. For me, it's a message that the youth are sending me, and that puts even more pressure on me. If I used to be able to sleep 2 hours, I've now cut my sleep down to just 1 hour. Here, you can't sleep, you mustn't sleep anymore. Because they must have seen something we're doing that, in their view, could allow Africa to get out of this situation. And for us, it encourages us, it remotivates us to keep fighting. That's why I say it's pressure. It's a very heavy responsibility, and I can promise that all we can do is not to betray, to stay true to our Pan-African struggle, hoping that it will inspire all African youth and that the Pan-Africanism we so deeply wish for can become a reality. Because Africa has suffered a lot. It's time for us to unite, to work together, to develop ourselves. Just as Africans go elsewhere to see how life is, see everything that exists, it's possible here in Africa too. It's possible, so this is our mission, and we are going to embrace it.
Mr. President,
How did the West go wrong? Why is it that other countries are following them, as in especially France, to leave them alone, leave their country? This is clever answer that he has given. Please listen to more. I'll be back.
Too. It's possible, so this is our mission, and we are going to embrace it.
Mr. President, more and more African countries are asserting their sovereignty and demanding the withdrawal of Western troops from their soil. Recently, for example, Chad, Senegal, and Côte d'Ivoire have made similar requests. In your opinion, where did the West go wrong in its relations with the African continent?
What I know is our own situation. We were at war, we lived with Western troops and all that. We saw, and we decided to part ways with those troops because it doesn't fit with our struggle. On the contrary, it actually amplifies the problem. As for the other countries that have separated, I can't speak for them because they made their own decisions to separate. But then President Macron said that he was the one who told them to find a solution and all that. As for me, I can't get into that debate. Only they know the truth. But one thing is absolutely certain, you simply cannot have a real, meaningful conversation about the concept of national sovereignty while there is a foreign army stationed on your soil, actively giving you orders and dictating what your government and people are allowed or not allowed to do. The economy, education, the entire development of a country is based on its military. So every country should develop its own army, be sovereign and independent, and that's exactly what we are doing. When I look at the case of Burkina, these foreign armies were present, and that contributed to the weakening of the Burkinabe army. They stopped recruiting. They are the ones who say what volume to recruit. There were no more weapons, no equipment, nothing. Even back in 1985, under Sankara, we were better equipped than 10 or 20 years later. And in the end, terrorism entered the country. When terrorism arrived, we didn't have an army. It's in the midst of war that we are now building an army. So it's normal that it takes a bit of time. We are suffering, but we have to build an army. And when we come out of this war, we must emerge stronger. That's what I said. When I look at the statistics of the Soviet army, the number of men they lost, but when the war was over, they came out much stronger. And today, no army has the equipment that the Russian army has. So we too must learn from our war. When we come out of this war, we must be very strong. Sovereignty begins with the army. Once you have a strong army, all the other sectors can easily develop. That's what I can say. That's what pushed Burkina, in any case, to separate itself from those armies.
All right.
Thank you so much for listening. If you are still here, we haven't finished yet. The elephant in the room is about Ukraine and Russia, as we all know how the game is being played. Yes, families, he was asked if there should be peace between Ukraine and Russia. And we all know Ukraine has come out plain to tell us that they are happy, giving information to terrorists, especially in Mali. There was an attack before. So what will happen next? Families, listen, I'll be back.
Another important topic that persists is the Ukrainian issue. Russia declares itself ready to negotiate without preconditions, while Ukraine constantly imposes constraints. Moreover, Kiev supports terrorists in the Sahel. Who doesn't want peace? For our two countries, in your opinion?
I think that even before now, there was the Turkish President Erdogan who managed to create a framework for dialogue. I believe the two presidents met at that time. That was only the beginning of the operation. All of us hoped that it would lead somewhere, that the weapons would fall silent, and that everyone would return to good intentions. But it was the Westerners who came and told the Ukrainian president not to accept. We followed all that, and in the end, what did it lead to? Personally, I think all of this is part of manipulation. I believe they were manipulated. Otherwise, the Ukrainian and Russian peoples, they were the Soviet Union. They are brothers. How is it that hatred and Russophobia were able to be cultivated within this population? The war did not start in 2022. It started in 2014. This is also a reality that many people perhaps don't know or that people refuse to acknowledge. The war started in 2014. Today, people are surprised to see that the blame is perhaps being shifted onto Russia and all that. But back in 2014, when Russian-speaking civilians were being bombed, there are images that still exist. People were locked inside houses and burned. There are images that are there, but action should have been taken all this time. They were manipulated, and today this is the reality. You see, all the aid that was given, it wasn't really aid. They decided to give away the minerals. In reality, Ukraine no longer belongs to the Ukrainians. They were manipulated, and they end up as the losers. All sectors will be managed by those who led them into this war. The hope was to weaken Russia, but Russia has only grown stronger in this war. I think they need to understand this and come back to reason to negotiate and achieve peace. Because they declared that they support the terrorists. Did you all follow that? We can also see on the ground that they are indeed supporting the terrorists. This is not a good war. I think they are mistaken and will lose. They need to come back to reason. In any case, they can support them, but we will fight them and we will win. So if they still haven't understood until now that this whole maneuver was meant to bring them down and seize their critical minerals, they can keep waging war. That's what I can say about the situation. Every people must understand that they need to avoid being manipulated and getting into a very complicated situation. That's more or less what I can say.
Thank you so much, families. If you are still here, I'm so grateful for your time. Finally, it's about General Langley. What really happened and what the general has said about him in particular. Why he said that ahead, or somebody comment. If you are still here, please let me know, because it will not be like I'm making it up. I'm sorry. That the general has apologized. I'm waiting for that apologizing news or announcement. I haven't seen it anywhere, because as you all know here, I take my news direct from the horse's mouth. And so when our president said that he has not apologized and they are waiting for him to apologize publicly, I said, so please listen and I'll be back.
Next, regarding the statements made by the AFRICOM commander before the US Senate, your government responded firmly, denouncing unfounded accusations about Burkina Faso's sovereign choices. What do you say to those, especially in Washington, who continue to question the legitimacy of your current partnerships, particularly with Russia? And how do you intend to defend Burkina Faso's image on the international stage in the face of this kind of rhetoric?
In any case, we are free to establish relations with whomever we choose. That is what independence means. So on that point, they can continue to think whatever they want. We will go wherever we want, as long as this partnership can be mutually beneficial for both parties. As for those remarks, as you mentioned, we have lodged a protest through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That's one thing, but I don't know what happened with that general. There is still an issue there. And I would perhaps like him to make a mea culpa. If he was sent, he should understand that this is not the right mission. If he was misled, he should say so publicly or before the Senate that he made a mistake. Or also, if it was ill-intentioned, we will confront him as necessary, because everything he said is a lie. And it's very shameful to see an adult lie, to see an adult general officer of a great army lie. It's very serious. First, he spoke about Burkina's gold, saying that we use it to protect ourselves. First of all, it's Burkina's gold, it's not his gold. That's the first thing. What business is it of his? It has nothing to do with him. It's Burkina's gold, it doesn't concern him. Second thing, he's lying. Because Burkina never had any gold reserves until we came. We are the ones who started setting aside gold in the treasury of Burkina Faso. Otherwise, there wasn't a single gram of gold reserves in Burkina. That means he's a liar again. Another thing, when he says we use it to protect ourselves and all that, we are free. If the people have decided that we should govern them, we have a duty to protect ourselves. So we are free. What business is it of his? And the part that hurt me the most, not because he's a general or because he's American or anything, but because he's black. It really hurts to see that they're using a black man to fight against another black man. And this didn't just start now. It has to stop. It's very dangerous. Even Libya. Who destroyed Libya? Again, they used a black man. In movies back in the day, in America, black people always played the bad guy. We used to say, it's just in the movies. Why do black people have to keep playing the bad guy? I think that if he heard this interview, he should look at himself in the mirror, feel ashamed, come out and say, well, I was given a false report, I regret it. He needs to say it publicly. If it was a false report, then it was made up, because it's possible. It's possible that someone gave him a false report and that he should say so, because you saw what happened when I take another neighbor. When I take another neighbor, again, as I say to myself, the Ivorian Minister of Defense who goes around, travels to Turkey, meets with the Turkish Minister of Defense and tells him that they won't sell us weapons. Do you see how much that hurts? When it's a black person who behaves like that, it hurts even more. Was a false report made? Let him come out and deny it. If he was sent to create a problem in Burkina, as they are used to doing, we will get ready. We will be waiting for them. Because this needs to stop now. The black race must not be used to fight against other blacks. Every time it's the same thing. That's what we deplore, and it really hurt us to see that it was a black person making those remarks. It's true that they may regret it through various channels. They're trying to make up for it. But now it was said publicly. So it needs to be corrected publicly. For us, that's how it is. We're no longer engaging in diplomatic hypocrisy, as we like to say. Saying things out loud and coming downstairs to say, no, we apologize, we don't have anything. It needs to be said publicly. So I urge them to make amends, to say it publicly, because African youth have understood, black youth all over the world have understood. This kind of manipulation doesn't work anymore. It's always been the case, using false pretexts in hopes of achieving other objectives. It doesn't work anymore. So it's unfortunate, but Burkina Faso remains true to its path. We will continue to develop. He forgot to mention everything we are doing for Burkina Faso. What we are doing, no previous government has accomplished. There you have it, the that happened. We are building many health centers, providing them with equipment for medical examinations, and lowering the costs of medical tests. Which government has done the same? No one. We are taking action in agriculture. We plow the farmers' fields for free. Our production has increased. Who has done that? No one. The army, we are in the process of creating a new army. The Burkinabe army has never had as many personnel or as much equipment as it does now. Who has done that? No diet. When it comes to employment, no government has created as many jobs as we have. Industrialization. Maybe that's what bothers him, that he wants to stop it, and so lies have to be invented. In any case, I invite them to rethink their approach. That's what I can say. It was, in fact, a very big lie, and Your Excellency, this evening, tonight you are meeting with President Putin. Could you perhaps, if you don't mind, share with us in a bit more detail what topics or issues you plan to discuss during your meeting together? And if possible, elaborate on any particular points of interest you anticipate. Maybe what agreements will be on the negotiating table. For us, it's mainly cooperation that we will be discussing. That's it, and also, as I said, cooperation. We are really moving forward on the defense and security aspect, which is already in place, but also on the education front. To train many young Burkinabe, people who already have talent, who are gifted, but also to train others who excel academically in the sciences. It is the sciences that enable a country to develop. All these aspects and all these issues will be on the table. But there is also geopolitics, which is undergoing major changes. Every day things are changing, and I think, as I said, we share the same perspective, to have a free world, a multipolar world, a world where people are independent and sovereign to do whatever they want to do. These are issues that will be addressed, and also mainly our region with our particular situation regarding the revival of Russia, which we will eventually discuss. Thank you very much for your answer.
Thank you so much for listening, families. Thank you. I appreciate your time. This is what he has to say about almost everything that is going on. I'm working on the other video and I'll bring it to you as well. When it comes to the apologies, we know what happened between France Airline, that they asked them not to go, and then later, secretly, they want them to come back to Burkina Faso. And our captain, our president said, no, you need to apologize or announce publicly so your fellows will follow you that is green line here. It's not red line, like he said. So, General, you need to come out if it is true. If you believe it is true, which we all know is lie, I feel his pain. And that's what I always mention here. Like when you know that it is your own black brother or sister who has been used to manipulate, and it's painful. And for me, some of you know my thought about President Obama, what he did in Libya, And still, people hold him in high praises like he was the hero. I said was. If he still is, I don't know. We know that that was a mistake, a big mistake, and it's not going to happen anymore. Anyway, credit to BF1, credit to RTB News and SparkNet. I'll leave you here. I will see you soon. Bye bye. God bless you.